Hi guys, welcome back to Ferris Tutorials. In today's video, we're unpacking CSEC Food, Nutrition and Health SBA for the exam year 2024 to 2026. Stay tuned. CSEC Food, Nutrition and Health SBA Assessment Plan for the exam years 2024 through 2026, and we're looking at assignment 2 for year 2 term 1 students. So those of you who have made it to grade 11 and 5th form, this one is for you in your first semester. Now let's take a look at our focus points. So we'll be looking at the work activities, which is your question, the elements being assessed, assessment methods, guidelines for work activities, and also suitable dishes for your work activity. Now guys, just before we get into this video, there's one thing that I'd like you guys to do for me. Please head on over to my cooking channel. It is called Tika's Kitchen. The link is in the comments section and it's also in the description section, okay? So please head on over there, subscribe, give it a share, turn on your post notification bells so you can be notified whenever I upload a new cooking video. And guess what? Over there you can find ideas as it relates to dish selection and technique for this SBA number 2. Now options includes braised oxtails, curried goats, also brown stewed goats, as well as curried coconut snapper, loaded coconut snapper. Up next is curried chicken and brown stewed fish. All right, now I'm waiting for you to head on over there. All right, thank you so much for subscribing. All right, now let's get into things. Now let's jump into it by looking at your work activities. It reads, your aunt has been away for over 15 years. She will be visiting Jamaica during the Christmas season. As a food, nutrition, and health student, you have been tasked by your family to prepare and present the following items for your diabetic aunt. 1. A 2-course meal using a moist method and a combination method of cooking featuring local food items. And 2. A pickle as a souvenir. Item must be decoratively bottled. All right, are we excited? Let's jump to the task overview. Let's break it down a bit, right? Now, this practical task not only should showcase your developing culinary skills, but also it will highlight your understanding of nutritional consideration for a diabetic diet, right? So all that you have learned about planning meals for special groups or people with special dietary requirements, this is where your knowledge of that content is called upon, okay? All right, so your goal is to prepare a meal suitable for your diabetic aunt who is visiting Jamaica during Heritage Week. You will be creating a total of 4 dishes, right? Now, these 4 dishes include 1, the pickle, and 2, the main course. But your main course has what? 3 components, right? So you are going to need a main dish, which is your protein dish. You are going to need a starch dish and also a vegetable dish. So with the pickle and the different components of a main course, in total you should have 4 dishes to prepare. All right, now let us look at the pickle. Now, choice of pickle should utilize local vegetables that are in season, but luckily for you guys, you have a lot of foods that are usually all season as it relates those that are suitable for making pickles, right? Also, you have to think about the presentation of your bottle and you have to create a label, right? Now let's pull these components apart. And the first one, as I said before, the choice of pickle should utilize local vegetables that are in season. Now examples of these, but not limited to, are carrots, chocho, and Scotch bonnet pepper. And these 3 suggestions came with your SBA guideline. But additional vegetables that you could think about onions, cucumbers, bell peppers, green beans, beets, cauliflower florets, okra, and also garlic, right? Because you do have cauliflower farmers here in Jamaica, right? It is grown and cultivated. Now, please remember that if you decide not to use any of this, remember that your choice of pickle should also show consideration to your aunt's special dietary needs. And remember that your aunt is a diabetic person, right? Meaning that her blood sugar is elevated, right? There are 2 types, but we're not going to get into that right now. You have type 1 and type 2. Good. Now, you can use a combination of these suggested vegetables. For example, the bell peppers. You could do an assorted bell pepper pickle. Just imagine how the green bell pepper, the red, the orange, so those bell peppers would look so attractive already. So just imagine how beautiful those color would let your pickle be. Right? Even if you're using Scotch bonnet pepper, you can go for different colors. There's a variety in colors too. You could do green, you could do red, and you could do yellow. Or if you want to do one straight color, it's up to you, right? But when it comes on to your vegetables, you can do one of each vegetable, or you can do a combination. Let us move on to bottling and presentation. Your pickle should be decoratively bottled, right? With the Christmas season in mind. Try to be as creative as you possibly can when you make your pickle. And you also think of the design of the bottle. It be so attractive that if someone see it on the shelf among others in a store, they'll choose yours. All right. Okay. Now let's move on to labeling. Right. So you should include a label with your pickle, and the label should have these different parts, right? So you should have the date of preparation. You should have the name of the product, the expiration date. So any special notes regarding ingredients or flavors, right? So if you're using anything that you know that persons may allergic to, you have to ensure that you have that in there as well. Okay, so any special notes regarding any of the ingredients, feel free to add that to your label. Now over here to your right, you have a sample of what your label could possibly look like. So this one is a label for assorted bell pepper, right? So bell pepper medley pickle. You have the date, you have the ingredients, date of preparation, and date of expiration, right? Now the label must be made before the assessment, so there won't be any time. You don't have any time in that 2.5 hours to be making label. So you must make your label before the assessment and get it attached to your bottle. Now if you would like a video of how to create labels on the computer, you can drop it down in the comment section below and I fix one up just for you. All right, now let us look at the other component, which is the 2-course meal. Now for the 2-course meal, you have 2 options. You could either do appetizer and the main course, and of course, you know, your main course consists of your protein dish, your starch, and also your vegetables. Or you could have a main course and the dessert. But if I was in your shoe, I would have gone with appetizer and main course, and the reason for that is I feel like that one is a little bit more flexible. You have a lot more options as it relates to the moist heat method of cooking, so you have to consider that when you are choosing your dessert, right? Now If you decide to go with the main course and the dessert, that is also fine. I have a few suggestions coming up that you could possibly do. All right. Now, you are not required to make a beverage during the assessment. You are not required. It is optional. You won't gain any mark, nor will you lose any mark if you have a beverage, right? So I would say focus on the main task because the beverage is not a requirement. However, if you feel like you need to add a beverage, please remember that you also have to bear in mind that it is for your diabetic aunt, right? So you wouldn't want to show that the assessor that you're not sure of the requirements, that what you should put in place if you're catering to someone who is diabetic. So please, all right, so it's better to leave it off than you go ahead and mess up, even though it won't affect your grade, if you get what I'm saying. All right, now moving right along, we're going to dissect this 2-course meal, right? So A, you must use moist heat method. B, combination method, right? So a combination method utilizes both a dry and moist heat method of cooking, right? And the ideal one here is braising. Good. So this is where you would brown or sear whatever item that you're doing, whatever protein that you're doing, and then you will allow it to simmer to complete the cooking process, right? So let's go again. So you must at least use one moist heat method, whether it be steam, boil, stew, or poach. It can be more than one. And for the combination method, the braising, you have to do that as well. Look at the other part that says required method of cooking must be evident in selected dishes. Now, for example, the appetizer may be stewed and the main dish may be braised. You must serve a complete 2-course meal, right? So you can't just do your main course and not your, say for example, your 2 courses consisted of your main course and your dessert. You cannot just do the main course, and if you're doing the appetizer and the main course, you cannot just do the main course and not the appetizer, right? So you must serve a complete 2-course meal. Good. Now, local ingredients, feature locally grown ingredients to celebrate Jamaican heritage. Okay, now let's move on to the other requirement that speak of suitable dishes. So remember that you're preparing for your diabetic aunt, right? So keep in mind your aunt's dietary requirement, focusing on low glycemic index ingredients and also, very important, portion control, right? Now, what is the glycemic index? The glycemic index is a measure used to determine how much a food can affect your blood sugar levels, right? Now, foods are classified as low glycemic index, medium glycemic index, and also high glycemic index foods based on their GI score, right? Now, when we speak about GI score, there are different ranges. So anything that is from 55 or less is a food that is considered to have a low glycemic index, and that means it won't affect your blood sugar levels. Medium glycemic index is any food that falls between the range of 56 to 69, and high glycemic index is any food that is 70 or over. So when you're selecting your dishes, be sure to choose food items that have a low glycemic index, okay? Now, you can also research your dishes using AI, right? So you can probably put in the search engine suitable 2-course meal ideas for a person who is diabetic, or suitable 2-course meal using foods that have low glycemic index, right? So play around with your words so that you can you can do your research and come up with some ideas to help along with the the knowledge that you already possess based on what you have been doing in class. Okay, all right, now we're moving on to presentation, right? So serve the 2-course meal attractively. So meals are gonna taste nice, but even if something go wrong, do not give up. Make sure when you're garnishing your dish or you're decorating your dish, make sure you do it to your best of your abilities. You try to create variety in color, in shape, so that you can elevate the presentation of your plate, right? Even looking at the right of your screen, there's a tomato rose, there's a carrot rose, and of course some fresh parsley there to create or give the illusion of the leaf. You could also get those from cucumbers as well. Just try to make it attractively as possible. Consider color, texture, and overall visual appeal, right? And of course, we spoke about the beverage earlier, and remember, the beverage is optional, which means you do not need to do a beverage. You do not need to serve a beverage. You will not get any grade, guys, if you do it. So stick to the task at hand and do it to the best of your abilities. All right. Now let us look at some appetizer ideas. And this is if you chose to do appetizer and main course, right? Because remember, you have two options. You can either do the appetizer and the main course, or the main course and the desserts. So just in case you decide to do appetizers, these are some examples of suitable dishes: deviled eggs, cocktail shrimp, steamed fish fillets, poached shrimp in coconut cream, poached jerk chicken skewers, coconut poached tilapia bites, vegetable broth, chicken broth, beef broth, fish broth as well, and also egg salad, right? Cucumber canapes, chicken salad on lettuce wraps, and also barbecue meatballs, right? So you would fry the meatballs and then you cook them down in your nice barbecue sauce. So these are just some ideas that you can use. All of these options here used moist heat cooking methods, right? And as you can see, they're identified there. So we have poached, boiling, steaming, right? And there's also one braising there too as well. Okay, now let us move on now to the main course option. Right, you are required to do braising. There's no if. So here are some options. You could do oxtails, you could do pork chops, you could do chicken, beef, or even tofu, right? So those are 5 braised options. There's also stewed pork, stewed beef, stewed goat, stewed chicken, and even brown stewed fish. Good. As well as curried goat and curried chicken. So those are some methods that you could use. Now, as it relates to your starch, you can't get away from the starch, but what you're going to do is use those ingredients that have a low GI score, right? Examples of this are cornmeal, which you can make polenta. You can also make creamed sweet potato and pumpkin. You could do cauliflower rice. You could do mashed cauliflower with Parmesan cheese. But remember too that the question state that your items have to be locally grown, right, to celebrate the Jamaican culture. Do have here brown rice that is usable for the diabetic, but just correspond with your teacher to say what they think, if they'll allow you to do it, because rice is not locally grown in Jamaica. But you could correspond to see, and I think they wouldn't mark you as hard if the other elements to your dish are also Jamaican items. Good. Now for the brown rice, you want to create interest. You don't just want to boil your rice just like that, but you could add some callaloo, you could add mixed vegetables, you could add pumpkin, you could add garlic and some herbs, just flavor it just a bit to add interest to your dish. All right, here in red, highlighted in red, are also bulgur, barley rice, and whole grain pasta. Good. As I said before, you are supposed to stick to locally grown items, but just liaison with your teacher or get the go ahead from your teacher if these are suitable ideas, if they will give you the go ahead for it. But these are actually ideal dishes for diabetic persons. Good. Now, as it relates to your vegetable dish, you could use string beans, carrots, cauliflower, broccoli, cabbage, right? All of those can be steamed or even poached, because the broccoli, the cauliflower, and carrots and the string beans, those can be poached or even steamed, right? Uncooked options, you could do a cucumber tomato salad, you could do a beet slaw, medley of your favorite fresh veggies. Okay, all right, so now let us move on to dessert ideas, and this is if you decide to do main course and dessert, right? So remember, with your dessert ideas, they have to use the moist heat method as well. All 6 that I have listed here use steaming, right? So we have potato pudding, cornmeal pudding, blue jaws, or we can say dukuno, steamed pumpkin pudding, coconut cornmeal pudding, and also carrot pudding, and all these are steamed, right? Now, tips for steamed dessert: always try to opt for sweeteners like stevia to keep the GI low. So you can use any dessert recipe that you see that you would like, but you have to be innovative. You have to make modification to that recipe. So for example, if it use all-purpose flour, counter flour, or pastry flour, you could substitute those for whole wheat flour. Good. Now, seeing that they would be steamed, I don't think that the texture, the texture will not be so affected versus you if you were substituting a regular cake that you will be baking with that type of flour, right? So with these steamed desserts, you're able to do those substitution without affecting the end product too much. Good. So always opt for sweeteners. So change out there. Even instead of stevia, there are some other types out there in the supermarket. You just need to find out what they are. Those that are sweeteners that are particularly made for the diabetics. Okay. All right. So the next thing that you have to keep in mind is portion control. Keep portion sizes small to manage the carbohydrate intake, right? So even though you're substituting the all-purpose flour or the pastry flour for whole wheat flour, you can still monitor the portion that you serve up so that you can limit the intake of carbohydrates. Good. Also, another thing, you can add fiber to your recipes, such as whole grains, whole nuts. These actually helps to stabilize the blood sugar, so adding that in there is also a plus. And of course, overall, just monitor the ingredients that you use. You have to be cautious with the added sugars and the high carbs, so you make your substitutions as needed. Now let us move on to the elements that are being tested. So preserve food stuff. So you'll be preserving your vegetables when you make that pickle, right? Prepare and present foods to satisfy dietary needs. This specific dietary needs that we're looking at is preparing meals for the diabetic person. Good. Prepare nutritious food, so you have to ensure that the meals are balanced. We're using healthy cooking methods as well to limit the added amount of fat, and also how you present your food. So make sure all your dishes are garnished and attractively decorated. Good. All right. Now, of course, your assessment method is going to take 4 ways. So practical demonstration is actually you cooking the food. Oral questioning, you're assessor may walk around and ask you questions based on what you're doing, based on what your process is, and also based on stuff that you may have on your time plan versus what you're currently doing. All right, so try to have a copy of your time plan so you can also follow the sequence that was there. All right, there's also going to be direct observation. They will come around to see what you're doing, and they will evaluate your final product. Right, so looking at it using sensory evaluation, the smell, the taste, right, and if it's suitable for your diabetic aunt. All right, now assignment 2 should be completed within the first term of year 2. So it's crunch time, and of course it will be externally moderated, which means it's not going to be your teacher, guys, but it's going to be someone else coming in to observe you in action. Okay, so give it your best shot. Now, continuing with the guidelines, remember you only have 2.5 hours. Those 2.5 hours do not include your pre-prep activities or your pre-preparation time. So make sure you pre-prep to the best of your abilities so that you're not in your assessment time working on activities that you should have done for pre-prep. Right now, you are required to complete all activities during your test period, and your test period, of course, is 2.5 hours. Make proper use of the tools and equipment, adhering to safety guidelines of these equipments as well, and you should serve at least 2 servings. It can be more, but at least, meaning that no less than that. So what you're serving up on the plate, even though it's just for your diabetic aunt, as the question says, you are supposed to prepare at least 2 servings. So that is it for the guidelines as it relates to this question, guys. You are awesome. You've made it to the end of the video. Please remember to subscribe, watch those ads, and share with persons who you know will find this information useful. Thank you for making it Ferris Tutorials.